Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Good morning, I'm Carl Fitzpatrick and welcome to Business Matters. Well, last Saturday the government published the Return to Work Safely Protocol, which outlines the procedures that employers must follow in bringing their employees back to work. Joining me now to discuss the practicalities of implementing the protocol is Mark Cullen, the Assistant Chief Executive of the Health and Safety Authority. Mark, the Return to Work Safely Protocol is a 24-page document which outlines a long list of measures that businesses must comply with. But is the protocol mandatory for all businesses now?
Good morning, Carl, and thank you for having me. Yes, Carl, the protocol is a result of a collaborative effort between the Health and Safety Authority, the Health Service Executive and the Department of Health. And I suppose it has received approval and buy-in after extensive discussions with the Labour Employer Economic Forum, which is made up of trade union and employer representatives. And it discusses matters of strategic national importance. So the protocol was developed under that and under the guidance of the Department of Taoiseach and the Department of Business Enterprise and Innovation. So what is contained in the protocol is practical steps and measures in relation to employers and businesses getting back to work. Once I say that, I should also acknowledge that there's an awful lot of essential businesses already at work and have some of the measures, a lot of measures in place. So for those that are returning to work, the protocol gives them practical guidance on what are the steps to take. And yes, compliance with it is very important in relation to the national effort to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
So how is the Health and Safety Authority assisting businesses with implementing this procedure?
Well, the protocol is the first step. And the authority's approach with all businesses and with all issues that they deal with is that we approach it from an advisory perspective, that we're out there to give information and advice and guidance to our inspection, leading up to business supports. So the protocol addresses that and gives a very broad, high-level, I suppose, roadmap for business getting back to work and what they must look at in respect of COVID-19.
Now, pardon the pun, but is this a move by the state to wash their hands with regard to preventing the spread of COVID-19 by transferring the responsibility to businesses?
No, I don't. It is not that. What underpins this and the development of the document is that it has been a collaborative approach. And I suppose it's important to point out that the COVID-19 and all the efforts that has been made to date has extended well beyond just the workplace, members of the public, people at home, the lockdown. Everybody's had to play their role in this. And the authority recognises that there are going to be issues with people coming back to work and fear and anxiety. So this is a roadmap. It's not an attempt to wash hands. It is going to be a collaborative approach and engagement by all parties, employers, employees, businesses, and the authority and other regulators and other bodies that have a remit in relation to public health, all have a significant role to play in this.
And Mark, do you envisage that many businesses will have to engage with health and safety consultants in order to ensure that they comply with the protocol?
I don't see that as being that has been an issue for most because as I said, a lot of essential businesses are out there working and complying with the public health guidelines. So it has been tried and tested. In terms of consultants, the protocol addresses very practical steps and measures and is a roadmap as to what an employer must do and what the responsibilities for the employer is, along with the workers. And it covers very practical steps in that. So there is no need to engage a consultant. That is not the intention here.
Now, you mentioned earlier on that this document is a high-level document and it's more general than specific in parts, I have to say. So how can businesses be certain that they satisfy the requirements of the protocol?
Well, if they follow the protocol, as you say, it is a high-level document, and what we would, and it's cross-sectorial. It's not specific to any sector. And what it is it's a good starting point with very, I suppose, key steps identified, and then sectors and indeed businesses then implement and take on board the general guidance within the protocol that must be adhered to, and then use that to facilitate their own work practice in their own workplace, depending on whether it's for employees or members of the public interfacing with that. So it's for them to look at their own specific work practices and then follow the measures and tailor it to suit whatever it is the business, because COVID-19 knows no boundaries. So it's right across every business at this stage.
Now, of course, the construction sector is returning to work on Monday. Will they be required to comply with this protocol from then?
Yes, absolutely. Anyone that's returning to business, and indeed the businesses, the businesses that are essential services that have been operating heretofore, will be also expected to comply with it. But as I said at the outset, they will have lots of measures already implemented, and what we're asking them to do is to review those measures and make sure that they're adjusted accordingly to this protocol. And a lot of them might have very little to do in that respect. But in terms of the construction sector, yes, once they start back to work, they will be expected to comply with the protocol also, regardless of the short time frame. But I must say that the construction sector also have developed their own guidance, so they have a lot of work done in respect of this, and the CIF have led on that particular piece of work.
And do you reasonably believe that small businesses will have the wherewithal and finance to implement the required actions to comply with the protocol?
I think the protocol is a very practical document that identifies key steps, and in terms of costs of implementing that remains to be seen. But some of the measures that are contained in here are not significantly high in terms of cost for implementing. They're very practical steps, and it's in line with public health guidance. So they're very practical and should not be that costly to implement.
And has the HSA done any financial modelling or estimations on the range of costs for businesses to implement these steps?
No, the HSA have not been involved in that. As I said, the role of the HSA so far in the protocol has been in developing it in a collaborative approach with the HSE and the Department of Health, and then through our inspection programme, going out and looking to see that businesses are in compliance with the protocol. So we have not looked at the costs of implementing the same.
Now, what is the HSA's plan for inspecting businesses to ensure compliance with the protocol?
It will be the same. The authority have an inspection program, and they have a number of inspectors that will be out inspecting, which will be the norm. We receive complaints. Bear in mind that it covers all sectors. That OSH, the Occupational Safety and Health legislation, has always been there. So we will be carrying out those inspections, looking at the occupational safety and health and compliance with the protocol.
And what approach will the HSA be taking when inspecting businesses? Will it be that of a consultative approach or otherwise?
The Health and Safety Authority's approach prior to COVID-19 and in relation to all their carrying out their inspections is one of advisory and support. And of course we are a regulator, and sometimes there are cases in limited number, but there are some cases where you have to maybe go to enforcement. But our approach is to engage with employers, give them the information and advice, and then move along the line. If they're not going to be compliant, obviously enforcement may be necessary at some stage, but it is support and advice.
And Mark, on the topic of enforcement, what are the penalties for businesses that don't comply with the protocol?
The penalties, the Occupational Safety and Health 2005 Act outlines a suite of enforcement measures, which includes improvement notice, prohibition notice, right up to closure. And any contraventions where there is evidence of a contravention in relation to any of the acts or regulations that we enforce, there are, if required, once you go to court, there are different fines that apply depending on which district court. But we don't see that as being an issue here. We really are focusing on compliance with the protocol, helping and support. The protocol is there, and go down the advisory route.
And can you see how this protocol could possibly lead to a raft of litigation being taken against employers which are accused of being in breach of the protocol itself?
Carol, to be honest, I don't see that happening. But look, we're talking speculatively here, and it'd be wrong for me to comment on that. But I personally don't see that. But that remains to be seen, Carol.
The protocol itself requires employers to consult with employee representatives prior to returning to work. How should that be done in a non-unionised environment? Well,
the worker representative, under the Occupational Safety and Health, there's consultation. There's a legislation that covers consultation and directs employers to engage with their workers through safety reps. The protocol then has asked for the employers to engage with and communicate with their employees, and that there be a worker representative selected, whoever that may be, and that they would engage with management in relation to how they're going to manage and the different work practices that may be necessary, and the controls and implementation of that, so that it would, again, in the workplace, that it would be collaborative and the employees would engage through that worker representative and through existing mechanisms such as if there is a safety and health officer there, if there is a safety committee there or a safety rep. All of those can be involved, but in a respective place of work that may not have that dependent on the size, a worker representative has to be selected and work with the management. So it's a collaborative approach.
Now, I'm just conscious that 90% of the businesses in the county have less than 10 staff, and the same rules apply. It's the same protocol and the same standard that applies, whether it's a sole trader or a multinational company.
Yes, Carol, but again, I point out that the implementation, the practical steps contained in the protocol are relatively simple and straightforward to implement, regardless of the size of the organisation or the size of the business. The smaller the business, one could argue that it would be simpler to implement the measures that have been signposted and outlined in the protocol.
If some business owners have read the protocol and feel that it's easier to wait until the requirement to have social distancing measures in place passes before reopening, what would you say to them?
Well, look, that's a judgment call that each, I suppose, business, because as I said at the outset, it is cross-sectorial. But again, I go back to the measures that are contained in the protocol are very, I suppose, simple to follow, and it would not be necessary. But then every business will have to make their own judgment, regardless of size, on how they can implement the measures in the protocol. But if they can't comply with the protocol, well, then that answer might be obvious at that stage. But I would say that is not the starting point.
And Mark, finally, for any business owner that's now going to take the steps to implement the relevant requirements of the Return to Work Safety Protocol, what advice have you got for them?
I would say to look at the protocol, have a look at the protocol. It is not a lengthy document. There are very practical steps. And there are lots of, I suppose, agencies and different departments that can offer some help and support in that regard. So that they won't be alone in this. And, to use the expression, washing the hands, it's not about that. Everybody that's in this, we're in this together. The COVID-19 is a significant issue throughout the community, and and by virtue of that can come into the workplace. But we have to work together. We're all working together in this. We all have a collective responsibility. So not to be fearful of it, have a look at it, and if there are any questions or issues that are arising, to look for, as I said, there are information sources identified in the protocol to feel free to contact those, and information and advice and direction can be given through those different information sources.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Mark Cullen, the Assistant Chief Executive with the Health and Safety Authority, and I would like to thank Mark for joining me on this morning's programme. If you would like to download a copy of the Return to Work Protocol, you can do so at the Department of Business website at dbei.gov.ie.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.